The build-up of congestion on A roads across the United Kingdom poses a significant risk to economic growth, recent reports have warned. Snail-paced traffic, as slow as it was before the horseless carriage, bottlenecks out of our vital ports, including Dover and Southampton, and delays because of construction, have stirred up trepidation amongst many about the hit to economic prosperity. In a report delivered to the Department for Transport, the government's National Infrastructure Commission also recommended that any major new road building projects should not conflict with the push for net zero. But with many roads remaining in the same state as the 1960s and the aforementioned upgrades suffering significant delays because of escalating costs, is the situation the latest in a long line of knocks to hard-working motorists? And instead of spending what is estimated to be over £100 billion on the white elephant that is HS2, why don't we focus on revitalising and modernising our essential road structure? To unpick this, I'm joined by one of the UK's most effective and perhaps most expensive in terms of the Treasury campaigners, the founder of FairFuelUK, Howard Cox. Howard, thank you for coming on. You're a campaigner for the motorist, but actually, isn't motorists broadly all right? We're quite happy going around in our cars, and shouldn't we spend lots of money on nice trains and buses?
That's not really reflected in my inbox. We've got 1.7 million supporters, Jacob, and one of the things that's, well, there's 3 or 4 things that worry them, like the 2030 ban, etc. But congestion is the big issue at the moment in time. People getting into cities, especially in urban conurbations, approaching cities, they are stuck in traffic jams. They don't get much faster than 20 miles an hour, and in London, I think it averages at 7 miles an hour at the moment. The problem we have at the moment is the quality of the roads. They're third world quality roads. We look at the potholes we're seeing now. Something like a third of the roads in this country are so pothole ridden they're almost impassable. These are the sorts of things I'm getting. About 6 years ago, I commissioned the CEBR, the Centre for Economic Business Research, independent economic analysts, to say what would have happened if the money outlined, or the capital outlined for HS2, that white elephant you mentioned, what would that have done for roads? And just to give you an example, it would have put an extra lane on every single motorway, dual carriageway in this country. Those are the sorts of things which we would have definitely got the traffic moving.
But how do we get to net zero if we're helping the motorist? Don't we have to bear down on the motorist to reduce emissions?
No, absolutely not. What we should be doing is incentivising motorists to move to cleaner fuels. That's one of the things we should be doing. We're not stopping people. One of the things that always fascinates me with the Sadiq Khan in London here is that he's actually saying, don't worry, bring in your dirty diesel, just give me some cash. This is the sort of approach that has. What we need is incentivise motoring in a way that actually helps the environment, and that means clean fuel technology. Hydrogen, synthetic fuels, e-fuels, all those sorts of things are available. Don't put these horrible, basically, caveats in people's pockets. They can't afford to get into their car to drive around the country.
And you've been very successful in campaigning to stop the increase in fuel duty. And that's been very popular with motorists. Does it have a political consequence? Does it determine how people vote, do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. When it comes to the crunch, people, they have no choice. They have to drive. And don't forget, fuel duty is a regressive tax. It hits low-income families more, small businesses, white van man, all those sorts of people are impacted more than anything. And as you know, when you see that pump prices have come down, inflation comes down. When pump prices go up, inflation goes up. It impacts the whole of the economy. So it is a political hot potato, and it's very, very important. And my inbox is full of people saying, who should I vote for? Who's best for drivers? And up until recently, I would have said the Tories. But I'm afraid, I've got to say to you, Jacob, your government is not doing a good job in terms of looking after motorists. There's too many anti-car policies.
And where are these really coming from? Are they coming from our aim to get to net zero in 2050, or are they revenue raising? Or are they simply that most of the people making policy are based in central London and they therefore don't realise how central the car is for people in rural areas?
Well, really, it's all of the above, as you've just said it. The net zero aim, this ridiculous, I call it a pipe dream. What's the point of doing that? We're not going to make a shed load of difference to the world in terms of that. I think it's arrogant to think that we can do something about it. And the big one, of course, is that why are we leading the world in banning diesel and petrol cars in 2030? We're only 6 years away from that. And most of the manufacturers in this country now are moving their internal combustion production lines to electric. and they're never going to be able to go back. We're being forced into this. And so in a political situation, I'm sorry to say this, but one of the biggest problems you're going to have as a Conservative government is the fact is if you don't support the motorists, you're going to lose votes and they're going to hemorrhage big time.
But nobody else will support the motorists anymore, will they? No. If you look at Sadiq Khan, who is a socialist, of course, his hostility to the motorist is very significant with the ULEZ charge.
Yes, there's no doubt about it. There's one, and I've spoken to Keir Starmer about it, and he still supports everything to do with that net zero as well. And so, really, we've got something like, what is it, 90% of the seats in the House of Commons want net zero. This is what people believe. I'm afraid people are going to move elsewhere. I'm afraid a lot of people are going to look at other parties, people like Reform.
And in terms of the state of the roads, you were saying the potholes. But every time I go on the M4, which I do every week, there are roadworks going on. They've just expanded it. They've got a smart motorway. It looks as if tons of money is being spent.
Well, where that money is coming from, I do not understand, because it's not going right across the country. There are certain arteries that are benefiting from that sort of thing. But most of the problem we have at the moment in time is the lack of investment in roads across the country, especially going across the country. The M4 is a good example, but most going up and down, we talked about HS2, or we talked about going north-south, but we need to count motorways and dual carriageways going across the country. But above all, just start listening to drivers. The stakeholders never listen to. We're just told what we're going to get, and that's one of the problems, and that's what I'm fighting for. And
so you're well beyond the Fair Fuel campaign now.
Yes.
You want to see more space for the motorist on the road. How do you allow motorists and cyclists to compete for the road space? What would you do in London on the embankment, for instance?
Well, I'd certainly get rid of that cycle lane. I'm sorry, if I became mayor, for example, I'd get rid of ULEZ, and I'd get rid of local traffic neighbourhoods, and I'd also get rid of cycle lanes down to a more manageable size. There's too many cycle lanes now. The more you can get an HGV truck down the cycle lane. Where did that come from?
OK, you say if you became mayor, are you going to stand from that?
I'm being asked to do that sort of thing, and I am looking at my options.
It's the challenge I always give to the Greens, who come along and, you know, and glue themselves to things.
I'm not saying
why not stand for election?
I'm not saying no.
Is this a GB News exclusive? I think it may be, that Mr Cox may be a candidate for Mayor for London when that comes up. But thank you, Howard.